This beautiful house is now mine. You need to think carefully about your future path and plans.
My husband turned to me and proudly announced with a smile. He spread his arms wide, looking around the grand room with satisfaction. This place where we stand is my family home, where I've lived since childhood. My father was a wealthy man with a strong attachment and attention to detail for his home. The well-maintained mansion is said to be worth about $3 million. This house is a precious legacy my father left for me. My father passed away just recently, yet without any basis. My husband claims ownership of the house I legally inherited. Maybe he thinks the inheritance I legally obtained becomes shared property due to our marriage. Just as I was about to correct his misunderstanding, he confidently pulled something out.
I'm not mistaken. I want you to see this. This is my basis.
What he held in his hand was, "My name is Hannah. I'm 38 years old. I work hard every day as a bank employee at an online bank. The reason I chose the financial industry is because I've been thoroughly educated on the real value of money and its risks since childhood. Both of my parents were known as asset management professionals and were quite successful investors. Having received a strict education about money, I wanted to learn its value and how to handle it."
Money is very valuable. You have a responsibility to protect and manage it properly.
My father often said this, and it stuck with me. Although we had ample assets, I didn't get everything I wanted right away. In fact, I feel that we lived a moderate life, no different from other average families. Even my allowance was a bit less than my classmates. Our family didn't often eat at luxurious restaurants. We preferred modest places. Instead of attending expensive private schools, I went to a local public elementary school. As a result, rumors about the size of my house and our family's wealth spread quickly.
Isn't Hannah's family really rich?
I'm so jealous. You probably can get anything you want, right?
Do you always have the latest gaming console? I'd love to visit.
In reality, I didn't always have expensive items. However, I was often perceived that way. I felt a bit out of place in such situations. Because, in my view, I was living just like the other kids. When I was in the higher grades of elementary school, a close friend named Ellie approached me.
"I accidentally broke Amy's new game. I have to pay for repairs, but I'm short on money right now. Hannah, can you help?"
"Have you talked to your parents about this?"
"If I tell them, they'll definitely get mad. To be honest, you're the only one I can ask for help."
Hearing her words, I worried about how our relationship might change if I refused. However, I had been taught at home to avoid lending or borrowing money. "I'm really sorry, but I don't have that amount on hand, so I can't lend it to you." After hearing my response, she walked towards her home with tears in her eyes. The next day, during the school break, I was called over by Amy from the next class.
"Ellie asked you for money. Why did you refuse? I've heard your family is quite wealthy. Shouldn't you help a friend in need? Ellie's really struggling to pay that money."
I was perplexed as to why I was being blamed for something unrelated. I kept explaining that I didn't have the amount on hand. After listening for a while, she said,
"But your family isn't struggling financially, right? Sounds like a lie to me. In the end, you value money over Ellie, don't you? It's cruel to leave her like this."
Saying this, Amy returned to the classroom. After this incident, unfavorable rumors about me began to spread. Amy and Ellie started spreading baseless rumors. They said I had scammed them or refused to pay for game repairs. The teachers quickly verified the truth and warned the girls. However, this warning made them more resentful. The situation worsened and rumors became more outrageous. They even reached outside the school. I never imagined it would become so big. Eventually, my parents heard about it. My father had to come to school, creating a huge commotion. After the parents had a meeting at school, the two girls apologized to me. Accepting their apology, I decided to cut ties with them. Since then, I felt they occasionally talked about me behind my back, but I never confronted them. During dinner at home, reflecting on the incident, my father gave me advice.
Hannah, if someone ever asks you for money or any favor, just state it's against our family rules. You don't need to clarify if you have the money. If they still push, tell them you'll consider it, though it's typically not allowed.
Such a commotion about money was something I never wanted to face again. I took my father's heartwarming advice to heart. Afterward, I became cautious about discussing money and even inviting friends over. What I had experienced made me value mutual understanding. As an adult, I always stayed alert to avoid troubles related to money or gossip, focusing on my work and relationships. At 28, a close friend introduced me to Robert. The moment our eyes met, I felt he was genuine. Robert, a year younger than me, appeared youthful for his age. I was drawn to his honest and positive nature. Over 2 years, our bond deepened, and we decided to marry. While preparing for the wedding, my parents, who had always hoped for my happiness, were ecstatic. They even suggested, "We'll help out, so why not have a lavish wedding?"
This special day in our lives should be memorable. Your parents are supportive, so let's have an amazing ceremony. And so we invited many loved ones and had an unforgettable wedding.
Sometime later, my father made a suggestion.
How about inviting Robert home to foster a deeper bond as a family?
I trusted Robert, but I knew he sometimes spoke without thinking things through. Due to past bitter experiences related to money, I was hesitant to open up about my family's financial situation to him. However, I felt that there would come a time when I would have to be honest with him. One day, with mixed emotions, I decided to bring Robert to my family home. Seeing the magnificent mansion, Robert was in complete awe, lost for words. It was as if he had seen something unbelievable. Throughout the tour of the house, his eyes sparkled with astonishment and excitement.
Your family is this wealthy, Hannah?
On our way back, Robert bombarded me with questions about my family's wealth and lifestyle. To be honest, I'm not fully aware of all the details. But I'll find out more next time. But something about the conversation left me uneasy. A few months later, I received an unexpected call from my mother.
I'm worried. Your father is undergoing treatment at the hospital.
What? Why? What's wrong? Is he okay? I was filled with shock and worry, unsure of how to react.
The detailed test results will be out soon. But you've noticed his deteriorating health, right? Remember the last time he visited, he didn't eat much.
Thinking back, indeed, my father had seemed off that day.
The test results will be out this weekend. Will you come with me?
Of course. I'm genuinely concerned about Dad and want to be there regardless of the outcome. That weekend, my mother and I visited the hospital and met my father in his room. At first glance, he appeared fine, but something suggested he was not.
Sorry for worrying you like this. Age can be cruel at times.
Afterward, the doctor provided our family with a detailed diagnosis. It was pancreatic cancer. Moreover, it was at an extremely advanced stage 4. The cancer had already metastasized to other parts, and surgery was said to be challenging. Despair instantly consumed me.
Even though he always took care of his health, why did this happen?
She murmured, trying to hold back tears. My father just sat quietly, listening to the doctor. The doctor continued to explain. The pancreas is deep inside the body, making early detection very difficult. And often by the time of diagnosis, the cancer has already advanced.
Thank you, Hannah. I hope you two continue to live happily.
Tears welled up in both my mother's and my eyes, hearing his sincere gratitude. We felt his deep love and hope in that moment. In the following days, I tried to visit my father as often as my work allowed. However, because of the outbreak of a new infectious disease, the hospital restricted visitors to immediate family only. As a result, my father couldn't spend precious time with his friends and his spirits declined.
Hannah, I have a strong wish to invite friends and acquaintances to our home. Even after I'm gone, I want you to cherish that house, welcome many people, and make it a comfortable place for them.
Inspired by my father's words, I started considering ways to make the best use of the house. I thought of renovating it for a new purpose, and began looking for professionals to do the job. Meanwhile, Robert was concerned about me visiting my father at the hospital every day. I had hesitated to tell him everything after our previous incident, but he was always worried about me.
Hannah, how's your dad doing?
When Robert asked, I replied, "It doesn't seem too good." He then said,
It must be tough for you. I want to help. Let me know if there's anything I can do.
He promised to support me wholeheartedly. I remember feeling so comforted by his kindness. However, the next words that came out of Robert's mouth sent a chill down my spine.
Hannah, as a married couple, considering our future, I'm curious about how many assets your father has. Isn't it our duty as a couple to share such information?
Robert, I'm not directly managing that, and I don't know the exact amount. Besides, if anything were to happen to Dad, Mom would take over the asset management. I replied, a bit irritated. Yet, Robert persisted.
I understand. But it's good to think about asset management and inheritance ahead of time. I recently met a legal professional named Samuel who specializes in this. Your mom won't always be in perfect health, so maybe we could consult him.
I felt something was off about how he acted and spoke. Was he just after the money? My dad already has a trusted lawyer with whom he's discussing the house matters, so there's no need to introduce a new person.
I see. But misunderstandings about money and assets can lead to troubles later on. That's why I think it's important to be well prepared.
I was shocked and puzzled by Robert's words. Time and again, he brought up the topic of inheritance, assuming my father would pass away. I found it unsettling and started avoiding him. Not long after, my father passed away. The immense grief of losing him and the ensuing matters of inheritance weighed heavily on me. According to the will my father left behind, I inherited our family home. But Robert's apparent interest in money and assets only repelled me more. Robert seemed cheerful, oblivious to my worries and concerns.
Hannah, isn't it wonderful to inherit such a large house? And don't you wonder how soon we can make it ours?
Honestly, I can only think of Dad right now. And how did you know all this? Doubts about my relationship with Robert swirled in my mind.
Actually, I ran into one of your cousins during the funeral, and we chatted for a bit. We somehow ended up talking about the inheritance.
Hearing those words, my heart was filled with frustration. A growing mistrust towards my cousin began, wondering why he'd carelessly share such private information. I replied calmly, yes, I did inherit the house, but it's too big for us as a couple to live in. But Robert's reaction was more excited than I had expected.
Why? I can't believe you wouldn't want to live in such a magnificent house. Honestly, I was looking forward to starting our new life there.
I responded with a wry smile. The family has already discussed and decided not to live there. Then Robert's expression instantly changed and he raised his voice.
Why would you decide that without even considering my opinion? Aren't we supposed to share our decisions as a couple?
That inheritance is mine, not something we share as a couple. I reiterated, a point I had made several times before. However, Robert seemed fixated on the value of the house, not the principle of the matter. I sensed this and renewed my determination to honor my father's wishes concerning his legacy. Perhaps because things weren't going his way, Robert became increasingly distant. Though he attended my father's funeral, he refused to take part in any of the subsequent procedures or visits. I had to face it all alone. Time flew surprisingly fast, and before I knew it, 2 months had passed. My life was hectic every day, but that day I felt I might finally get a break. However, my hopes were immediately dashed when I saw Robert's smug, disgruntled expression. He smirked slyly at me, visibly startled and suspicious.
I have something important to discuss. Please have a seat and listen,
he said. Confused about what he might say, I sat down as instructed.
The thing is, I've secretly changed the deed of your family home into my name.
He pointed to a document labeled Name Change Report. I was in shock and could only listen to his words in a daze.
I might have rushed our marriage. I didn't realize initially how introverted you were, with few friends and not great at communicating. Your family might be wealthy, but you have a low income. However, I'm considering having you work as a maid in that mansion. Of course, for a minimal wage. What do you think? If you refuse, I want a divorce. I no longer want to be with you,
he declared. At his words, my mind went blank for a moment. However, I managed to control my emotions and retorted. What are you talking about, Robert? There's no way you can just change the name on the deed by yourself. It then became clear that Robert had proceeded with changing the house's name through a judicial scrivener named Samuel, which deeply confused me. Why are you doing this on your own? But you can't just change it like that. Proper procedures are required, and I won't let this end as it is. I'll sign the divorce papers. I firmly declared to Robert, quickly gathered essential items, and left the house. How much can a person change when faced with money? With these thoughts, I returned to my childhood home. As expected, Robert called the next day.
Hannah, return the keys to the family home. I've changed the deed, so it's now mine.
I can't believe you. That's the house my family has cherished for generations. You can't just change its ownership. I couldn't hide my disbelief and anger. Suddenly, the house's security alarm went off loudly, and there was a loud banging from the entrance. It seemed he tried to enter, triggering the alarm.
Hannah, can you hear me? Open the door. If you do, we can talk it out.
Do you think you can get in like this? This home is a treasure my family has protected. It'll never be yours. From the other side of the door, I could hear Robert's voice filled with anger.
What nonsense are you talking about? I've properly completed the paperwork. Open this door and let's discuss it.
His voice was accompanied by intense banging on the door. Calmly, but with internal apprehension, I waited for his next move. A few minutes later, security guards arrived and subdued Robert. I took a deep breath, slowly opened the door, and spoke to the guards. This man is my ex-husband. We have no relationship now, so please take him from my property.
I can't believe it. I showed you the document yesterday, didn't I? On paper, this house should be mine.
Seeing the confidence on his face, I was momentarily bewildered, but then said, wait a moment. I headed inside to get a necessary document. I returned and showed Robert a genuine copy of the property registration. Look at this. It clearly shows that I have legally inherited this house. Whatever document you have doesn't have any legal value without the proper procedure. Robert was shocked and unable to accept the truth. No matter how trustworthy a judicial scrivener might be, it's legally impossible to change the ownership without the owner's consent. I could see Robert's face turning pale.
I really trusted Samuel. Everything he said, all his suggestions, I believed them all. When I learned that your father had considerable assets, my friends and I discussed how much of that inheritance would come to us. During that conversation, Samuel approached us, offering advice with his expertise. With his way of speaking and his demeanor, I felt he was trustworthy. So, when I heard you had no intention to live in that house, I consulted with him right away. He told me that while the process might be a bit tedious, if I paid $20,000, he could make the house mine.
Robert's voice revealed the pain of his betrayal. He hurriedly took out his phone, trying to contact Samuel multiple times.
Why, Samuel, why won't you answer my calls? I trusted you.
He pocketed his phone, but his eyes were full of anger and pain. Didn't it cross your mind to research the formal procedures for inheritance registration, or the average cost for such a process? How naive can you be to pay such a high price for a worthless document and believe it's genuine? That Samuel must be a scam artist. And you're no different for blindly trusting him. Robert, I once thought you were sincere, but it seems money changed you. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. My words seemed to deeply wound Robert's conscience. As I tried to close the door, Robert, in a panicked state, tried to stop me.
Wait, Hannah, I deeply regret this. Let's start over. Can you reconsider the divorce?
Why this sudden change? You can't just decide things based on your convenience. Security, please escort this man out. Robert was dragged out by the security. Later, we changed our contact information and strengthened our home security. Robert tried visiting several times but was always turned away by security. Over time, we saw less of him. Months passed, and as summer approached, we prepared for the annual memorial service for my father. A certain individual caught my eye at the cemetery. He was thin and frail, but it was Robert. Seeing him in this state didn't surprise me. Before I realized it, 3 months had already passed. I was well aware of how Robert had been living and the kind of days he'd been going through. This was because a mutual friend had been informing me about Robert's recent situations and events. Robert harbored a strong desire to mend our relationship. Even during work, he continuously sought me out. As a result, he received multiple warnings from his place of employment, and ultimately, he was fired. Moreover, due to his trustworthy and gullible nature, he was deceived by several con artists in a short span of time. This led to numerous troubles. There were genuine friends who gave him heartfelt advice, but Robert would rather listen to the enticing offers from swindlers. This resulted in accumulating a significant debt. Due to this series of events, he lost the trust of friends and family and led a lonely life. The Robert standing before me now looked nothing like the Robert I once knew. His clothes were visibly old and dirty. His presence here, at a memorial for the deceased, was clearly out of place. As I was about to alert the security, Robert suddenly collapsed. He started bowing deeply, his head touching the ground.
Hannah, I'm painfully aware now of how much trouble I've caused you. I truly want to apologize.
His actions and words weren't fitting for this sacred place, making the atmosphere even more awkward. Robert, this is not the place to resolve our issues. I just want to quietly spend time on my father's Memorial Day. So please, stay quiet now and we can talk later. I asked Robert calmly yet firmly to leave. I neither wanted to forgive nor be angry with him at this place. I just wanted a quiet moment to remember my father. However, Robert's emotions were escalating.
Hannah, ever since I lost you, I've been filled with regret. Life without you, it's unbearably painful.
His heightened emotions and loud voice drew the attention of the gathered relatives and attendees.
Hannah, is there some issue between you two?
Why is he raising his voice here? What's he thinking?
Is he causing trouble for Hannah?
Can you tell us what happened?
Voices and questions began swirling around us. I felt an overwhelming pressure from the situation. My only wish was to spend the day peacefully, centered around the memory of my father. I raised my voice with determination. What are you doing here? This is a crucial time to remember my father. I don't want you to disrupt this occasion with your selfishness. Please never enter my life again. Security, he's obsessed with me. Please handle him appropriately. The security personnel acted swiftly. They firmly grabbed Robert and kept him away from us.
Hannah, please listen to me. Hannah.
As he was being escorted away, he continuously shouted my name. It felt like everything was out of focus for me. I apologized to the relatives and friends around me. I sincerely apologize for causing trouble on such an occasion. I deeply regret the inconvenience. After overcoming the disturbance caused by Robert, we conducted the memorial service for my father in peace. After the ceremony, I headed to the police station. I discussed Robert's behavior, future precautions, and emergency responses. Then, I decided to expedite my move from my childhood home. I had been considering this for a while. Fortunately, I found a new residence I had been eyeing and moved immediately. Some friends informed me that Robert had visited my old house several times. Upon seeing the renovated exterior of my childhood home, Robert seemed filled with regret. He stood there, crying. Robert had once been obsessed with our dream of a happy married life. He dreamed of living as a millionaire and aimlessly spent his days. One day on TV, I saw Samuel, someone Robert often mentioned. Incredibly, Samuel was being sued for another fraud incident. On my end, while at the hospital bed, I received words from my father.
Make it a house to share with many.
With that sentiment, I planned to turn the family home into a rental vacation house. To actualize this plan, I began searching for a specialized renovation contractor. I then discussed the direction and style for the house makeover. As a result, our once grand family home was reborn as a modernly designed rental vacation house. I'm now managing it with my mother. When Robert visited after many years, what he saw was a home that looked as if it was newly built. The rental house's location is ideal and its spacious garden is its charm, making the business more successful than anticipated. We are living a life that we're very satisfied with right now. I wonder if Dad is happy with this? While seeing the smiles of guests staying in the renovated house, I mentally convey this to my late father. I feel a deep sense of satisfaction and joy knowing I've fulfilled my father's expectations.